Today I'm going to answer a question that I've been asked quite a few times since the death of Benedict XVI. And that question is, do I still think that he was the man described in the Third Secret vision with these words? We saw a bishop dressed in white. We thought it was the Holy Father. I'm Mariana Bartoldo of Genesis 3:15, and I am the author of Fatima, The Signs and Secrets, and Guadalupe, Secrets of the Image. So as a person who is considered I am the only traditional Catholic woman who is considered as an expert on Fatima. I'm explaining to you why I'm asked that question. It's because of those things and because of my previous work in publishing as a magazine publisher and an editor and a researcher. So I'm asked that question because, specifically, I am the original source of the theory, or if you will, the hypothesis, which was published in 2008, which was that it was possible that Pope Benedict XVI was this Holy Father, this bishop dressed in white seen in the Third Secret. And I explained why. And mostly it had to do with at least two prophecies by Pope St. Pius X. But if that information is new to you, please see episode 38, A Bishop Dressed in White, here on the Genesis 315 channel. Just click on the words Genesis 315, especially if you're on YouTube, and it'll take you to all of the different videos and podcasts that I've made. Now, at any rate, as I said, my theory was first introduced into the Fatima literature in 2008, and it took off like wildfire, especially after Benedict XVI announced his abdication from the papal throne and the papal office. So although I can't be certain, it also appears, as you will find out later in this quick podcast, that my theory or hypothesis has also reached the ears of Rome. Now, without the text or the message of the Third Secret, we cannot say positively if the Fatima children saw one man or two, but I would seem to think simply by the way it was expressed that the text is showing us that it was indeed one man that they saw. The confusion arises because the description says, we saw a bishop dressed in white. We thought it was the Holy Father. Now, it's that second sentence in the context of the entire Third Secret as it is given to us by the Vatican, and which you will still find on the Vatican website under the simple title, The Message of Fatima, that is most intriguing to us, or at least to me personally, because we know from the Fatima literature, especially Sister Lucia's memoirs, which were written under obedience between the years 1936 and 1941, that the children had recognized a particular Holy Father. And specifically, we know that more from what Lucia's testimony said about herself, or that she told us about what her cousin Jacinta Marto saw. We know that St. Jacinta had private visions granted to her alone, which included a Holy Father. So how is it that Lucia, in her after years, after her two younger cousins had passed away, after she had become a Dorothean nun, how is it that Lucia expressed herself in the way that she did in that description of the Third Secret's vision? Did she have any doubts? Personally, I don't think she would have, simply because it's evident now that heaven was in frequent contact with her throughout most of her life, if not till the end of her life. So did anyone from the Vatican, especially during the reigns of Pius XII and later John Paul II, ever ask her these certain questions? After all, B16, as people affectionately called him, did not die in the manner that was demonstrated in that vision. Now, of course, if one prefers to believe that the Third Secret is simply a symbolic message, in which it possibly could be, although I don't think so, we can make almost anything out of it. Now, personally, I don't believe, because everything that Our Lady showed them or taught them or allowed to be seen, I don't believe that the Third Secret vision is simply symbolic. Because those signs that were either seen by the children or by the witnesses at Fatima were a matter of truth, a matter of reality, whether concrete or spiritual. Now, all of the signs at Fatima, from the cloud over the holm oak tree to the great miracle of the sun, point to divine revelation. And divine revelation comes from God. It was entrusted to the Catholic Church. But God can neither deceive nor be deceived. So what we know of this third secret of Fatima is God's truth. From the very first part of the first secret, the children were shown hell, which is a reality. It's not an obscure idea. It's not left over from ancient times. God himself revealed it to us. Our Lord Jesus Christ spoke of it. And so hell is a reality. She talks about the First World War, which would come to an end, and she was saying, pray the rosary for world peace. And that happened. She warned that if she wasn't heeded, that there would be another sign that would come to them, a one of great light. A night illumined by a great light is the way she put it. And that was the aurora borealis that came in January, I think, 1938, if I'm remembering the dates correctly, January 1938. And that was around the time that Hitler annexed Austria to his own power. And that is the beginning of the World War. Now, some people might argue over that, but Our Lady did say that. And even though it seemed to be Japan at the time, it was what happened also in Europe that led even further and led to World War. So that prophesied sign that she said would come did arrive if the church did not heed her, became a reality. The promised sign in October of 1917, the great miracle of the sun, came to pass. It was a reality. It was witnessed by 70,000 to 100,000 people. And the list of the truths that were told or shown, demonstrated, so to speak, at Fatima goes on and on. So when we look at that third secret text, and again, you can look at it at the Vatican website or just look up what is the third secret of Fatima. Is it possible that we do not see Pope Benedict XVI or Pope Emeritus 16, but perhaps do we see Francis? And I'm asking that question because if Benedict, despite his apparent abdication of the papal office, remained the true pope until his death in December of 2022, then is it possible that Francis is the one described in the third secret as a bishop dressed in white? Again, we don't know with certainty. This is the problem, not only when prophecy is given to us in full, but unless we have all of the information, which we don't. We do not know what the third secret message says. We can only go by things that were said to us from anyone from Cardinal Sciappi, who was the papal counselor from almost 40 years, covering the popes from, I think it was Pius XII to John Paul II, to the Fatima archivist, Father Alonso, to things said by Cardinal Ratzinger before he became the Pope, and so on. Now, you might remember that the previous Vatican explanation was that the bishop dressed in white was John Paul II. That was the claim, and it was a previous assassination attempt made on May 13th, 1981. We're talking 20 years before the third secret was released. Even though that same third secret, which was released, was not given to us in full and actually arrived about 41 years too late, because Our Lady made it clear that she wanted that third secret revealed by 1960 or upon Lucia's death, whichever came first. So again, the Vatican, different people in the Vatican let it be known that they thought or wanted us to believe that John Paul II was that Holy Father, that bishop dressed in white. But people didn't even discuss the part about the bishop dressed in white. They ignored that, just like they ignored the angel with the flaming sword, until I made the connection in 2008, publicly at least, that the Akita message seems tied to Fatima, not only because of the message given on the anniversary of the Miracle of the Sun, October 13th, 1973, but because the message of that same message of Akita ties to the third secret's opening lines about the angel with the flaming sword, as if to set the world on fire. But anyway, to return to who is this bishop dressed in white, many of us did not accept the claim that John Paul II was that same Holy Father or that bishop dressed in white. We just didn't believe it because it didn't make any sense. So when we move forward now to Francis's pontificate, let's recall that Francis himself at Fatima in 2017, which was the 100th anniversary of the first Fatima apparitions, well, all the Fatima apparitions from May 13th to October 13th, offered a public prayer to Our Lady, and he described himself in that prayer as a bishop dressed in white. The last paragraph of that prayer was worded in this way, quote, "Hail, Mother of Mercy, Lady of the White Robe. At this place where 100 years ago you showed all the designs of our God's mercy, I look upon your robe of light, and as a bishop dressed in white, I remember all those who, robed in baptismal white, want to live in God and pray the mysteries of Christ to attain peace," unquote. Now, if you pay really good attention to the other words, you might notice that instead of saying plainly and outrightly that he remembers all of the baptized in his prayer who want to live in a state of grace, he instead says all the baptized who want to live in God. And instead of saying for all of them who want to pray the rosary, he instead says that he remembers those who want to pray the mysteries of Christ to attain peace. So technically you could say that those are correct, but again, he is speaking publicly in such a way, not only making a prayer to the Mother of God, but he's praying so that the faithful can hear him and understand what is his petition. So you have to wonder, why didn't he just say it more plainly? Anyway, you could look at it as a different way to state his intent, of course, but it could also make it a bit obscure for those who are not really paying attention. And yet, he clearly identified himself as a bishop dressed in white. And of course, that was after he called Our Lady the Lady of the White Robe. That was a new way to address Our Lady of Fatima. I mean, it's never been said before by any pope, as far as I know. But anyway, he did identify himself as a bishop dressed in white. And some think that by doing it that way, he was admitting that he is not the Pope. That's in addition to other proofs from describing what they call the munus, which they say that Benedict did or did not abdicate, to other things, including not calling himself the Vicar of Christ, just the Bishop of Rome, and so on. Now, some think that with those words, he was quietly mocking the Fatima message, especially the Third Secret. I remember that Father Ripperger said in one of his videos that he was worried when he heard that Francis called himself the bishop dressed in white. He found that a bit alarming. And so did I, because you just don't know what was meant by that, because the description of that third secret vision is most serious, and it certainly shows what appears to be the martyrdoms of the Holy Father or a bishop dressed in white, whoever he might be, in addition to the people who died before him and the greater numbers who died after him in the same way that he died, because he was put to death by bullets and arrows. So here's the question. What do you think? Do you think that Francis is the bishop dressed in white? Do you think that, notwithstanding, I should say, any theories or claims that people say that they saw Benedict after his death and he claimed that he was, let's put it this way, sneakily put to death? I mean, these are just things we certainly can't put our trust in. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at what's happening now. Let's look to inerrant scripture and to biblical prophecy as the best we can understand us. And what do you think is the possible answer? But on top of that, I will also say, do you live the Fatima message? Do you pray your daily rosary? Do you wear the brown scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel and live chastely according to your state in life? Do you do the 5 first Saturdays? Do you offer up your own daily duty, which is from your state in life to your state in life as a Catholic also? In other words, do you follow the holy days? Do you follow the holy days that don't come up only on Sunday, but during the week? Do you follow the precepts of the church, and so on? Do you offer up these difficulties in getting to a true Mass or getting to confession when it's maybe only given you 15 to 30 minutes per week for the entire parish? Do you do these things despite the great difficulties and hurdles? Because now it is a penance to be able to do these things, but it's also a great great grace? And also, do you offer up sacrifices, whether the ones that you offer up voluntarily or the sacrifices that are granted or given or allowed to you by God, and offer them to God in reparation for sins and for the conversion of sinners? So these are some of the things of the Fatima message, but we have this special help with Our Lady telling us we have to pray the rosary and that only she can help us. Very similar to what she said later at Akita, Japan. So again, please, in the comment box, let me know what you think. What do you think is the answer about the bishop dressed in white? And if you like this and found any value in this content, please like and subscribe to Genesis 315. And please know that until the next time, I'm asking that God may bless you and yours, and that Our Lady Mary will keep you and yours under her starry mantle. Salve, Regina.